Thanks very much. So, now, moving on to the actual point that we're going to be discussing. This is Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So, Scott, do you want to give us a bit of a... What is this?
Sure. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of horror and mutation. Um, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft is basically it's D&D horror. It's D&D Wizards of the Coast getting together and being like, we're gonna do horror. How can we do horror gaming? People are interested in it. There's elements of horror in most campaigns, but no one dedicates an entire campaign to horror. But people do seem to want to. So let's see what we've got. Van Richten, the titular character in this, Rudolf Van Richten, that is. Rudolf Van Richten is an eponymous monster scholar, Van Helsing, and he has a rivalry with Strahd, the vampire, Van Helsing. He also has a team of sidekicks who help him fight monsters and document Van Helsing. It's Van Helsing, Rudolf Van Richten.
It's Rudolf Van Helsing. Yeah, that's fine. I think I have no problem with it, to be honest, because people want to play as Van Helsing and things like that, but due to various marketing things, you can't do that.
Yeah, and this is ages ago. To be fair, stalwarts and old guard, you might recognize the names and stuff from D&D Second Edition. I believe this is when Ravenloft and all this kind of stuff was rolled out originally. So this is old school stuff, and people have been like digging around, taking a look at it, and revamping it.
Bringing it back from the dead, you could say.
You say it's dead. The people have been clamoring for this. Strahd, you might know, Curse of Strahd has been very popular with D&D community and players in general.
Yes.
And the continuation of that is Strahd lives in Barovia, which is in Ravenloft.
Yes, because I was going to say that I have heard of this. We've mentioned it briefly in previous shows as well. This is somewhat beloved of the community, isn't it, Ravenloft? It is held in high regard and with great fondness.
Does seem to be. It does seem to be, certainly. Yeah, people have been anticipating this very much. Although I have like trawled around, cast my sensors out on the internet to see what the general consensus is. And general consensus seems to be quite positive, apart from some people who started referring to it as Wokenloft because of certain changes that have been made, which is funny because that's becoming just a term for anybody who doesn't like anything. I didn't like this sandwich. It's woke. I don't like that color of beige. It's woke. It's funny. Anyway, we can detail that at a later stage. But,
yes, you're always going to get the people who are like, what was wrong with it then? I liked it then. I like that. Now it can be fine. And you're like, everything changes a little bit.
It does. And to be fair, it's changed. I mean, I don't know. I didn't play D&D Second Edition. I didn't play Ravenloft then. But this book basically is split into sections. You've got a huge section on the dark domain. So Ravenloft is this miasmic bunch of demi-planes, this archipelago of insanity. It's just got loads of stuff going on, and there are domains within Ravenloft, and they are each a different thing. One's like a massive city, one's like a small country, one's just a house. But many of them take place over quite a large piece of geography that are equivalent in size to like just enough to have an adventure campaign in, pretty much. So yeah, the dark domains have been created by the dark powers to imprison the Dark Lords. Are you following me?
On a dark, dark night in a dark, dark domain.
literally. Now, I'm saying this quite tongue in cheek here because I've always found that funny. I'm not gonna go and demean the rest of the incredibly well written book. I'm just gonna shout out a few of the writers right here. Writing in this book is Whitney Beltran, Bill Benham, Kay Tempest Bradford, Banana Chan, Ajit George, Cassandra Kaur, Renee Knipe, Kira McGran, Molly Osterstag, Tamor Raymond, and loads of others, right? So the writing in this is pretty bloody good. I'm going to start you off with a little note, an in-character letter, carrying on with several of the other books in D&D. They've got a few in-character references, like punctuating the start and continuing through it. So this is a letter from one character to another character. Dr. Van Richten, I'm writing this from Rivalis, a town where I'm surprised to find your name on the villagers' lips. You're more than merely a well-remembered citizen, Doctor. The folk here talk of disappearances and hungry shadows and the evil of an abandoned estate, Richten House. This place. The crimes and tragedies that transpired here. I know we'd both rather forget them, this whole accursed land, but the mists drew me back. Now that I'm here, I know. The past we both hoped to bury is not done with us yet. Something terrible festers here in Darkon, sir, lurking in your own family home. My investigations begin with the sealing of this letter. This time, I hope our families can stand together against whatever haunts us both. Yours, Ez de Avenir. And Ez de Avenir is where... Sorry, mate, what'd you say?
Nice.
No, yeah, there's some stuff like that throughout. It sets the tone. It sets the tone, and people who know these characters will know them very well. Just over my left shoulder here, that's Ez de Avenir. And Ez de Avenir is. It feels like to me that Ez de Avenir is very much the Buffy to Richten's Giles. I'm just going to say that people are going to hate me for that comparison. I'm just going to put it out there. Like it is like describing Van Richten's a monster scholar and describing Ez is a monster slayer. Like I'm just putting it out there. It's Giles and Buffy. Anyway, they are of course in a deeply horrible setting that's different to Sunnydale. But yes, she's the kick-ass one. And around him, Van Richten has a bunch of other allies as well, some of whom happen to be like his family and stuff. So it does definitely have that Dracula feel. Whether you interact with these characters or not, you know, that's completely that's up to the campaign and up to the DM. Now,
I was just going to say, just before we move on, a little top fact from Chris just chipped in. In the original, she was named Esmeralda in Curse of Strahd, and her story has been updated in this book.
Yes, I think you're still correct. Her full name, I believe, is still Esmeralda, but in every instance I can see in the book, it has been shortened to Ez. So I believe you are still correct. Yes. Yes. So we have in this book, not only are there the Dark Lords, the Dark Domains, very little about the Dark Powers, that's very vague, but a lot on the Dark Domains and a lot on the Dark Lords. No stat blocks on the Dark Lords. I'll come to that later. But we also have, and this is a big thing, people are very excited about this, is the new lineages. Not races, but also, yes, they are races, but also, no, they're not. They're lineages. And James, you might remember these because we've covered them in an Unearthed Arcana very briefly before. We have lineages. They are the Dhampir, the Hexblood, and the Reborn. These have been officialized. They went out on Unearthed Arcana ages ago, and now they are official here in Richt. And if you want, you can play a Dhampir, a Reborn, or a Hexblood. These things are, you will have your character's race. So you start off as one of the fantasy races of D&D, and something can either happen to you and change your race, like you get bitten by a vampire, or from the start of the campaign, you can say, so my character is a dwarf Dhampir, and this is what happened to them, for instance. So you will, in doing so, you will lose a few of the attributes of the dwarf and gain a few of the Dhampir, but you will still have a little bit of both going forward. So that's why they're lineages. Now, from the quote from the book, lineages, in the land of the mists, power and dread lie in the simple question, what happened to me? The following lineages are races that characters might gain through remarkable events. These overshadow their original race, if any, becoming their new race. So that shouldn't clear anything up for you, because it doesn't for me. Nonetheless, you know mechanically how it works. You get it. You splice them together, right? It's quite easy if you try not to explain it. So you have the Dhampir, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward and pretty cool. The artwork here, it's not one of the ones we listed. It's on the website, but I can just tell you now that this particular Dhampir looks like he should have been in Spandau Ballet. Looks cool.
Sweet. Good comment by Gwot there, because I thought exactly the same thing. Sounds like D&D are learning from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It does sound a bit like they're learning from Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They're sort of, you know, coming up with lineages and bits and bobs. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Pathfinder 2nd Edition has Ancestry, right? And this is some hybrid of them both, fittingly, because it's describing a hybrid thing. It isn't going fully on, like, just changing the word, the phrase, the category to lineages. It's still sticking with races, but you can tell they're trying it out. They were trying it out in Unearthed Arcana, and I think they're trying it out now to see how it goes down. Yes,
ancestries with heritages. I think it's good. I think it's just flavor. It's you know, and I was going to use a really weird analogy, but you wouldn't do surgery with a bread knife. But yeah, you'd start with a bread knife, but then you wouldn't finish with a bread knife.
You wouldn't do surgery with a bread knife, but let me tell you that Dhampir might, if its particular hunger was for spinal fluid. That's right. One of the things you can hunger for as a Dhampir is not just blood. It could be flesh or raw meat, but there's also cerebral spinal fluid. That could be your hunger. Good luck playing that in a world of humanoids.
Wow.
There is also the Hexblood as well. Hexblood is something that I really wish Brimbone had access to, because this is just Brimbone. That is literally a bunch of hags getting hold of you and making you into a little bit like their own. You were born unto a coven. You were created by witches. You have abilities that reflect that, and hex abilities that reflect that as well. And also you're a bit spooky, and you might be your visuals might depend on the hags from the D&D lore. So an anise hag or a sea hag or a green hag, that might reflect in how you look. And there is also the reborn as well. You can play as a reborn, which is, I'm not going to say Frankenstein's monster, but that's a theme they're going with. Death went wrong. You come back from the dead and something else went a little bit. That's very much the theme. Death isn't always the end is the title of the reborn. So yeah, this one particularly stats wise, the other two, the Dampier and the Hexblood, seem like okay, they're pretty balanced. The reborn seems to me to be a little overpowered. I could be wrong, namely in that they don't need to eat or breathe or sleep. Going forward, that's pretty clutch. But
there must be some downside to them, surely. I suppose maybe that comes in the flavour thing of, like, you know, I'm sure that people would object to them stumbling into a bar or something like that. I'm sure you'd have things going on.
Yeah, it's very much like that. In the art, we have like quite a cool looking reborn, and they have a phantom limb. That's one of the drawbacks you can have, like drawback or just like a cool addition, is like something else happened to you in the transgression from death unto life, and a phantom limb is one of those. But there are others like yeah, you were released after being petrified. In public, you pass as an unremarkable individual, but you can feel the itchy straw scratching inside of you, like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very tempted too, because one of these things is one of the origins of the reborn is you were magically resurrected, but something went wrong. I love that. I'm very tempted to steal that and put it in my home campaign. If any of my players die and they get magically resurrected, I may resurrect them as a reborn from this book. I don't think that any of my players are watching, but if they are, spoiler alert.
Fantastic. We see this is a good indication of how really you're already being inspired by this book, which is a good thing. And just to clarify to everyone, I want to say we are not doing an in-depth review. This is not a la, you know, sort of going through every page and looking at every bits and bobs. This is more of a, what would you say this is, Scott? A first look.
First look.
Yes.
A peek through. We're peeking through it because we're too scared to look at it fully. It's scary.
It is very scary.
But there's also, if you wanted to do a page through of this book, then stay tuned until the end of this show, because I will tell you how you can get your hands on one. Yeah.
Just before it goes, a big shout out to Gwot for his Buttermen, because we were talking about the bread knife dependency for doing surgery on the Buttermen races. I can clear up though that the Toastians have always been the mortal enemies of the Buttermen because of the Toastians' near just obsession about wiping their entire civilization on themselves. So
you guys play too much Stellaris.
I eat way too much toast. Oh no, the Buttermen! Yes, so there we go.
So moving on, we've got another thing in here called Dark Gifts. Wandering the realms and the domains, you can be bestowed with a dark gift. I love these narratively. I love these mechanically. A dark gift is something that someone can bestow upon you, perhaps even the Dark Lord. If the Dark Lord is aware of your presence, you might not be, because you are usually mortal and feeble to the Dark Lord. But something else could happen as well, like an accident or whatever. These are things that can happen to you that affect your player going forward.
So you could sort of like hit the Dark Lord in your car and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I hit my car, and then he's like, dark gift, good move.
Yes. Yes. Do you know what? Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
There are things called like echoing soul and gathered whispers. The gathered whispers is you are haunted by spiritual beings, whether the souls of the departed or entities from another plane. These you would roll on a table and get a kind of benefit and a kind of drawback because of the whispering and cacophony going around all around you. They are sometimes distracting, and sometimes they can whisper to you just a tiny nugget of truth that might give you an advantage on something. So these things just like circling around you is a wonderful thing to add flavor and stuff like that. Quest rewards and things like that. Like you're worried about giving players like powerful magical items and stuff like that. A dark gift is both as a curse and a good thing.
Yes.
It does feel like a reward, but does feel like it adds something to the character as well. I like it. I like the mechanic.
Yes. Yes, and it's always fun to roleplay, you know, sort of if it's a double-edged sword. things should have their drawbacks and their boons.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So also we've got subclasses in this book. So if you play a bard, if you have this book, you'll have access to the College of Spirits, and if you play a warlock, you will have access to the much awaited for undead patron. People have been clamoring for a decent undead patron. I believe everyone hated the undying patron. So now we have the undead patron, where the source of all your powers as a warlock is a lich, just straight up a lich, or a vampire, particularly powerful vampire, or what have you. Even one of the Dark Lords of Ravenloft, perhaps, and you have appropriately themed undead spells. The subclass of the Bard, however, the College of Spirits, is another fun one because, again, it introduces random tables. You can feel this a lot more with D&D 5 these days. They're going a lot more with stick a random table on it. We recently had a barbarian in Tasha's that was a wild magic barbarian. Every time they rage, they get to roll a d8 and something crazy happens. They're into this, like, and the College of Spirits, the Bard, is you literally channel the spirits of old dead people and they tell you stories to help you out, but you have to roll a dice for it. So you could be in a fight, roll a d8 and get a 1, and you get told the tale of the clever animal, which makes you more nimble, or like it gives you a bonus to charisma, and you're like, not now, Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare. I need the tale of the renowned duelist. Can you bring me Joan of Arc? I like that. I like that mechanic. It's funny. So you just got like a cacophony of unhelpful spirits just chirping up and being like, "Oh, I know this one. The tale of the reluctant triangle. Yes, I know it well. Shut up."
Yeah.
But yeah, there's.
That's quite a thing. I'm getting a sense of mischievousness about this sort of, a lot of these boons, in that, of course, you'd also get undead spirit because they are conscious of themselves, wanting to tell you the tale even though they know it's highly inappropriate. So they'd be like, "Oh yes, I have the tale. I have the tale." It's like, "Do you? Yes. Do you? Yes. Okay." So yeah, it's about the egg with like no mum, and you're like, oh. Great.
I think for the Bard especially, that's really fitting because the Bard should always have the option of mischievousness, shouldn't it? The option of mischief should always be open for a Bard.
And also, do you know what? Because a Bard is fun to roleplay anyway, but when all of your decisions, you know exactly what's going to happen. A lot of the times when I've played with Bards, they have just gone, I do my Song of Inspire. They just, you knock it out because you've always got the right option. Why would you ever roleplay anything else? Well, I think it's great if that sort of, during the fight you come out with this outrageous story and everyone's like, "What the funk was that about?" You'd be like, yeah. And you'd have to come up with a reason why you sang that tale or whatever. I think it's great. It's really cool.
True. I'm gonna skip on because I really want to get to the bit where I get everyone to roll dice. I told everyone to brought dice.
Oh yes.
It goes into details as well of the different types of horror you can have, and there are 6: cosmic horror, body horror, ghost stories, folklore horror, dark fantasy, and it gives quite a lot of information. This book is teeming with information and useful bits. Gives quite a lot of information on how to run that genre, that theme in fitting with it, and obviously there is a bit of monsters at the back, which some of them fit perfectly. They've even got a little addition for slasher horror, so you can do a Friday the 13th / Scream adventure if you wanted to. They've included a monster. It's called the Relentless Killer, so it's statted for a monster if you wanted to make a Freddy in one of your adventures. I'll tell you something else that isn't statted though: the Dark Lords. I'll come to that in a minute. I'm still miffed about it, but just an important thing I want noted for certainly under body horror, and there's one for cosmic horror as well. There's a little addendum. They've given notes and stuff like that, and advice on how to run things. And what they're quite good on in this book is content and safety tools. They are scattered throughout the book at various different points in the book, but because we're dealing with horror and it's an invitation to be scared, come, let me scare you, let me scare out myself on this journey. You're going to be dealing with people who are going to be in a heightened emotional state anyway, obviously. As such, as quite rightly they should, there are more safety tools and content tools in this. It goes into great detail on the X card. It recommends what to do with session 0, but also there are other things like this, which I'll read out from the body horror section. This genre has a history of portraying disability as monstrous. Be aware of those tropes and avoid them. It's good to acknowledge that kind of stuff. There's another one for cosmic horror as well, where just as an addendum, they say this genre has a history of portraying marginalized peoples as monstrous. Avoid these tropes and, don't do them, which is good, I think. It's a nice little nod. It's a nice little nudge.
Very important, yeah.
because as I'm sure everyone knows, horror can it can just do the wrong things at the wrong time. If done badly, and it shouldn't be done badly, especially not with a book this size. It's 250 pages long. It's bigger than that, and all the pages are huge. So yeah, so they got that in. But what they didn't get in, James, is the Dark Lord's stat blocks. This has been a source of outrage.
For
the
you
Dark
or for
Lords,
the community as a whole?
Yeah, seems to be the community as a whole. The Dark Lords do not have stat blocks in this book. The Dark Lords are ephemeral and huge, and they're bigger. They're almost conceptual. They're talked about a lot in this book. They get a lot of information, a lot of backstory. That's all good. That's all no. Love it, love it, love it. They don't have stat blocks, and they actually say in this book, it shouldn't be. They've given stat blocks. They say you should use stat blocks from either the monster manual or from this book, and then tweak them. But not to make the Dark Lords the focus of your campaign. If you're able to reach and punch the evil god of this land, then that's not scary anymore. I get that. That's a good point. They do say words to that effect. I think that's a worthy thing. But I also think players who have invested and paid money for a physical copy of this book, we should have the option of having everything. And they say, yeah, and we have. You can just make the Mummy Lord from the Monster Manual and just tweak it a little bit. I'm not sure about that. I think it feels a bit lazy. I'm happy to be wrong on this if people think opposite, but it does feel a bit lazy, especially when this book's so well written.
Well, I think possibly. I think you're right to touch upon, there was actually, because I'm sure that a book with so much thought and planning and things like that this must have come up about, do we stat block the Dark Lords? And I guess the argument's made, well, if we stat block them, then every campaign's going to be about going and eventually fighting them. It's going to be the ultimate culmination of most campaigns. But I do think that once you release a book and somebody buys it, it isn't your world, it's their world. And if they want to take it and they want to go and fight the Dark Lord and punch him, and the world and Ravenloft becomes a sunny sort of land of rainbows, well, okay. It won't affect anyone else's game. It's your game, it's your sandbox. And if you want to do that, I mean, I think that'd be terrible, but some people out there might want to do that. Yeah. But yeah, as you say, by not statting them, you're like, well, we're not going to allow you to take things to that level, or at least not in a satisfactory way.
Does feel a bit of a funny choice. Now I'm gonna come to the section of interactivity. I hope chat, if you're listening, that you brought your dice, because I would like someone to roll me a d6 and tell me what you got, because we are going to randomly roll an adventure. A horrible adventure from this book right now, and we're going to randomly roll each section of it. It's each of the genres of horror has been given a table, an inspiration table. These are quite common in a lot of D&D books. If you're struggling to reach inspiration for anything, any point particularly, you can roll a d8, d10, or d6 and see what you get, and they're pretty well written. So let's see what we get to start off with. Let's find out which genre we're going to do. What did you get, chat?
Stu has rolled a 3 straight off the bat. Gwot 5.
2, 3. Stuart, you have chosen dark fantasy. So, dark fantasy. We're now going to. Dark fantasy is as much of a genre of fantasy as it is of a genre of horror. Generally, any tale featuring both supernatural elements and horror themes might be considered dark fantasy. So, now, settings, villains, themes, torments, and plots. Let's go with what setting we're going to have. And I need someone. So, James, did you bring the D8?
I didn't. I can call up a D8. Gwot has.
I knew you didn't.
No,
it's all right.
I've got a dice right. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I've got one here.
Okay, cool.
So, but after that, Gwot rolled a 5. So, what does 5 give us?
Was that on a D8?
I believe it. I think you have only said D8s. Was that a D8, Gwot? Let us know. If not, let's say yes.
Cool. Okay. So the setting for this particular dark fantasy horror story is a land dotted with the floating and fallen ruins of magical megastructures. Colossal floating around. So let's find our villain. All right, let's find our villain. Key to an adventure or a story.
Then I'm going to roll for the villain. Here we go. This is me on my.
I need you to roll it's a D10 though, James.
Oh, it's a D10. That's all right. You didn't tell me that. You changed it. You changed the dice now. There we go.
They have different tables. It's not me. It's the writers.
Truly villainous way, and I have rolled. Our villain is 8.
So, in this land of fallen and ruined megastructures, the villain is a commander of a legion of soul-addicted Templars who punish crimes by burning criminals into psychoactive spirit dust. So, Coke Templars. That's what you've got have given us.
Yeah, there we go. Bang, straight up, a legion of Coke Templars. Going round a land that they have probably ravaged and probably have done that. Right, okay, fair enough.
I mean, anyone who's done a bit of history knows how terrifying the Templars were anyway, but to have them do spirit dust, psychoactive spirit dust as well, that's absolutely terrifying.
Psychoactive spirit dust,
okay,
God.
So this sect of psychoactive spirit dust addicted Templars crashing around this fallen, floating megastructure realm. But let's find out the plot. Okay, so
another D10?
This one's a D8. Could somebody in the chat roll me a D8 and tell me what you get? Adventures in Dark.
Well, Steph rolled a D10 and she got a 2. Can we count it?
Unfortunately not.
Oh, come on.
Okay, all right, fine. We'll take the 2. We'll take the 2.
I mean, okay, to be fair, I know that she sometimes delays, so she probably rolled that for the first thing. So let's give her a chance to catch up. It's a 2. A 2.
The 2 is the plot of this is to seal a portal to a demonic realm that opens within the mouth of an innocent acolyte. So some newbie Templar has got a portal to hell in their mouth, and you've got to seal it whilst evading the Templars, who are all addicted to spirit dust, in a floating, crumbling down land.
Hang on.
There is also, so that's plot. We've got 2 more to roll on here, and that's the torment. Now, the torment of the land. For Dark Lords in dark fantasy settings, power is at the root of their suffering. Perhaps their rise to dominance led them to sacrifice what mattered to them most. Torments in Ravenloft are very much like another narrative tool, another conceit, another thing. The domains of prisons as much as they are realms. So could somebody and anybody please roll me a D8 and we'll find out what the torment of this game is.
Okay. Well, actually, Steph isn't too far behind, so she rolled a 5 on a D8. So we could. Oh, well, actually, no. Do you know what? We're going to give Gwot this one. Gwot rolled a 2. A 2 again.
All right. Worthless sycophants surround the Dark Lord, their incessant praise making every success hollow. You can already see that bureaucracy is going to be a big problem in this campaign, in this game.
Wow.
We've got a lot of red tape and a lot of problems already. The final one is one of the adventure sites, so perhaps maybe where the campaign begins but doesn't end. So could somebody and anybody please roll me a D8?
A D8. This is going to be fastest fingers first. This is a bizarre sounding adventure, but I love it.
It is quite bizarre.
She is a bit delayed. Okay, so anyone can roll me a D8, or I will roll that D8.
Feel free to roll it, James.
Can anybody roll me? I'm doing it. I'm doing the D8. Here we go. The D8. It is 8 max damage.
8. So the adventure site, potentially where the campaign begins, is a fortress with 7 locked gates that seal off the underworld. So pretty high stakes there straight away. No pressure.
So do you think so there's this fortress that seals off the underworld, and somewhere in there is a small child, maybe they were born there, maybe they're sort of like the child of a peasant, who has the gateway to hell in their mouth, but they're in there, and outside this castle rage the Coke legions and the Dark Lords in this castle, surrounded by a bunch of sycophants?
Well, obviously as well that this is a world of floating and ruined magical megastructures. So obviously this fortress with 7 locked gates is floating and almost impossible to get to. So that's already interesting. You probably have to get through the Templars in order to try and stop that portal to hell opening around the 7 locked gates. So you can already see that's like a campaign that we've built there out of bizarre, strange darkness. I hope your minds are firing with grim dark already, because mine certainly is.
Well, but it is, and you know, these books, they need to offer inspiration, don't they? They need to, as you say, fire your mind to make you go, oh, that's giving me a great idea. And also, I quite like the fact that if you wanted to, you could discard that. But in the process of discarding it, you're making a choice, and you probably have something else in mind. You'd be like, oh, actually, instead of the Coke Legion, I really want to do, and off goes your story. Yeah,
absolutely. And you might well want to do that, because there are several other domains as opposed to making your own. You might want to venture in one of the domains. There is one, obviously there's the big ones, Barovia with Strahd. No stat block for Strahd, but that's in the Curse of Strahd book and whatever. Also,
do you know what? We've mentioned this before, and I think the Pathfinder does this as well. No, in fact, I know the Pathfinder has done this.
Yeah.
If you've put the stat block in another book, it doesn't mean you can't put it in another book.
Yeah, yeah.
Why punish somebody to be like, well, yeah, if you buy that book for 50 quid, you'll get that one stat block. This is literally about his homeland. It should have his stat block in this book as well. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely agreed.
I will die on that hill.
Yeah, I think that's true. But yeah, the other domains. One of the other domains is one that I nearly played in years ago. Actually, a friend tried to get me to roll up a character for a second edition game. We were going to play in Richten, which I believe I've pronounced correctly. I probably haven't. I didn't want to pronounce. It does seem French themed.
Aren't Richemouleau's a type of fondant?
Yeah. Don't try and eat one because this domain is covered in rats, rat plague, boring. And you generally speaking, you're involved in a corrupt game of nobles who all wish to ignore the colossal, dangerous, swarming rat plague that's engulfing their entire city because they may be in on it themselves. That's the deal. If you played Vermintide, Richemouleau is Vermintide. Very, very much so.
Right. Got it. Now, are you ready, Dangerlings, to see the mess that is the presentation page? I lined up the presentation fine, so the artwork will come through okay. But Scott is going to go full on Picasso, I think, when I skip over there. But are you ready to see it? Because actually, do you know what? I'm going to link this in. This is going to link into the kind of cosmic horror. It's multiple portals showing a different facet of Scott all at once in a cosmic dance of truly epic proportions. Here we go. Ula Guthna Shoggoth. There we go. It did not disappoint. Okay, so while we're talking about some of the artwork here, because the reason I wanted to display my own incompetence so freely is because actually some of this artwork is freaking awesome. Really, really cool. Big shout out to the artist.
It is good, and this is one of my thumbs ups for this book. There are a few thumbs up. There's a couple of thumbs downs. They drench you in high quality art, and that is good and necessary. There are several different themes of horror in this book. There are several different types of domain, and getting the art down for them to make them all feel that they are different and palpable is good, is righteous, and correctly done. There is one that's floating around on that screen, I believe, which is largely green. It's of a seance.
That is the one I started with.
And that just the face of the lady to the side who's clutching her Pomeranian looking up at that ghost that's materialized on the table is just wonderful. It's a wonderful face. I love it. It's exactly what you'd expect.
It's so good. And just all of those faces, actually, I found myself looking around the table and thinking, gosh, that's really cool. Like there's some cool faces there. So that's...
We've got the artist for the main cover is Anna Podedwana, and the artist for the alt cover that's behind my shoulder here is Scott Fisher.
So yes, the artwork that we've got here, we've got, I believe, what are the Frankenstein's? Not Frankenstein's monster, but the
Reborn.
The Reborn
coming out of the greenish sort of like laboratory.
Yeah, that is so cool. Very, very cool. And then we've got a sort of a rogue fighting rats. So I guess that's what you were just discussing.
That's
there.
Richemouleau. Yeah. That mask is there to protect you from the plague, but that won't help against the were-rats.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, I did fix it, Steph. Sorry, I should have left it. Really, it was quite entertaining, but actually wasn't quite as bad as I thought. And then we've got what is that? It's sort of a marionette on a unicycle.
That, my friend, is a carionette.
I mean, I think I've worked with them. I'm sure I've done parties with that performer.
I think we both definitely have.
Both definitely have. But
what
is that?
Dark Circus there, absolutely. The carionette is one of the monsters that's featured in the back of this book. The carionettes arise from innocent intentions. Heartfelt wishes breathe life into a beloved toy, and for a time, a creator might feel blessed by their new companion. But carionettes aren't content to live as toys and seek to escape the confines of their diminutive bodies. Actually, so already I'm pretty on side of the carionette. Like, I do feel like the carionette is, and also as well here, the monsters at the back of this thing, although some of them may be evil and cosmic in nature, none of them have alignments listed to them. That's very interesting.
Very good. Very interesting. Now, that's an interesting point, actually, before we, because we are running a tiny bit short, but we did start a tiny bit late. Obviously, something like this, with someone like Ravenloft, you would expect this to be an unbridled, evil-drenched, horrific nightmare of Lovecraftian proportions. But is the truth actually it's a lot more grey? So I imagine how have they navigated that?
Well, to be fair, they do explicitly say at the start of the book that the Dark Lords are evil. What they do is evil. They have been imprisoned in their realms for unforgivable, repeated evil acts. It does mention something about the temptation is to humanize them and stuff like that. I know Strahd himself got a bit of a cutesy look at for a while, and the internet came back quite rightly saying like this man is a narcissistic abuser. And this book does go into that. It doesn't hold back on the Dark Lords. Don't worry about the Dark Lords; they are evil. It is also assumed that the constructs and things and monsters you meet in there will also be evil, but of course that's up to how the players interact with them and if they can be used and what have you. With the individual monsters, you know, maybe something else is afoot there, but it's assumed that most of these things will try and harm you. Believe me, a lot of them look incredibly harmful. But speaking of which, try finding them. This brings me on to my final bugbear of this book, and that is that yet again there is no appendix. This caused more of an upset than the absence of the Dark Lord stats, the Dark Lord stat blocks. But yes, we have an appendix at this book. It is a spirit board. I think they're trolling us. I think that they want us to summon our own appendix to try and flick through everything in this book. I believe it's to encourage use of digital copies, which again I think is one in the eye for people who buy the physical book. I think that's unfair. Yeah. I'm a bit stick in the mud about this, but there is a conscious choice. They're a team of very talented writers. It wouldn't have been their choice. It would have been the publishing team to put that out. But they made a conscious choice to not put an appendix in, not this book, but a couple of other books as well. When me and Ross did the Scots review of Candlekeep Mysteries, that one didn't have an appendix. And at the time we were like, yeah, okay, might be justifiable because everything is contained within each chapter. All you would need would be in those few pages. So maybe that's okay. That's inexcusable in this book, I think. You will need to flick through it, and to not have one, I think, is annoying. And the feeling that it could be a bit of a cash grab, I think is potentially insulting and would put me off buying this book. I'm not going to lie. Maybe I'm just old and I like my appendixes. Nonetheless.
Yeah, do you know what though? I will support you in this because these books are designed for DMs. They are not designed to be handed to the player so they can have a good old flick through and read all about the monsters and paths and everything else like that. You know, you might show them something, or, you know, occasionally we're allowed to, you know, look in Dan's book, sort of back when we used to physically play. But generally, it is a tool for DMs. So making that book harder to use for its absolutely core intended sort of audience and users seems confounding. I don't know why. As you say, it makes you immediately think cash grab. Because why else would you do it? Why else would you do it?
I find it there may be a better reason that someone has discovered for this, but I still yet to find it. Anyway, that's a big old thumbs down from me, unfortunately. But in summation, I just want to get a couple of tiny extra things in. No,
go for it.
There is also featured in this book towards the back. There is something called the Bagman. He lives in your bag of holding. I love that idea. Yes. There is a horrible spindly creature that sometimes will take up residence in your bag of holding. You'll go in there to get your +1 longsword, and you'll come out with a horrible hand attached to it, and that is terrifying. The Bagman exists, and he can just pop out of your bag of holding sometimes when you sleep. So that is absolutely terrifying. Again, taking something safe for the players and making it scary. The Bagman also doesn't have a stat block. It has information and stats. The Bagman itself doesn't have any stat blocks. They're trying to make them untouchable and make them fearful. You can't play horror if you are a level 18 character with a load of magical items. Nothing will scare you. So I get why they're doing it for a certain point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And do you know what I love about that? Just very quickly, because we are running a bit short of time. I think Bag of Holding is probably one of the most abused magical items there is in existence. It is, people use it for, well, if it's an infinite sort of bag, sure, I can just put anything I want in it. And like, I remember in one game, we had a friend who scooped up goblins or scooped up a river or did this. So I love the fact of something that turns it on. Yeah, I reach into my Bag of Holding and a weird hand holds it. Like, oh, that'd be so creepy. Like, that's great. Love it. Love it.
Also, finally, Ravens. Oh, sorry.
On a note, Chris literally just popped up with the Bagman not having a stat block. Really annoyed me. Well, there we go. See, it annoyed Scott as well. Stat blocks.
Finally, Ravens. Ravens make an official thing. That's a big news. Big klaxon. Ravens. Ravens. Also, again, they're listed as a monster. They don't have an alignment, but the way they're written implies that they are good. So cue everyone wanting to play Ravens in the near future. I'm sure that will happen.
So they're a playable class.
As well, there's an actual adventure in here for levels 1 to 3. It's called the House of Lament, which I believe is an adventure, a house, and also its own self-contained Dark Lord. Anyway, so this book is absolutely teeming with stuff. Lineages, subclasses, so much information on the dark domains, and monsters, and an adventure as well. It's crammed full of good stuff. It's written very well. It's got great bang-in safety tools in it, and discussions about session 0, about X cards, about how they should be respected, about how your players should be respected, about accessibility and inclusivity at the table. All those things are threaded throughout really nicely. What detracts for me from this book is the absence of just baffling stat blocks, and the appendix is a really frustrating one. So there you go. That is me in summation on the old Van Richtens.
So would it be fair to say that it gets a Scott thumbs up?
You know what? I'm not going to go with a thumbs up. I'm going to go with a horrific leer because it's in theme. I'm going to go. If this book,
God! Why didn't you? Safety warning. Where's my X card? Gee,
sorry, mate.
That's horrific.
I'm going to give it a leer because you know what? I would question paying full price for this book, given that those things are absent from it. But I would want to because there's such good content in this book. So your mileage may vary, viewers. What do you think? So speaking of which, if you happen to grab this book at either a slightly reduced rate, I think it's an absolute bargain. Or if you happen to get it on a giveaway, which leads me very neatly onto my next thing. Do you want to have this book? That's right. It's the alt cover. It's the same one as behind me on my shoulder. We're not giving away the original cover. We're giving away the alt cover version of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. If you are in the UK, sorry, we haven't expanded globally just yet. If you are in the UK, then over the next couple of days, it will go on our social media, like, retweet, and follow us on Twitter, and you will be in with a chance of winning this if you're in the UK. This very book, this alt cover book, which has had one previous owner, me, for 2 days, and I've thumbed through it twice maybe in that time. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Have a look at our social media over the next couple of days. Keep an eye out, and someone will win this book. Someone will win this book.
Yeah, and do you know what? Having you thumb through it for 2 days actually makes it more valuable.
I've bestowed it with dark eldritch energies, the likes of which you'll never understand.
So profound apologies there to Chris, who's responded with curses in capital letters. I'm sorry, Chris. Yeah, that's right up your alley.
Soon. Do you know what? Soon. We're the next chance because this obviously was lovingly given to us by Wizards of the Coast. Thank you very much. The next time, I think the next few times we're able to give a giveaway, we should be able to look at doing it like beyond the borders of this tiny country.
Yes.
So do stay tuned, mate. Promise.
And actually, to be fair, when we last did a giveaway, it was a digital thing, so we could do it. But this is physical. This is a physical copy. My goodness. So watch out for social media. Keep an eye on that. And thank you, Scott, for such an engaging and interesting talk of what sounds like a truly awesome book. I mean, I'm something of an old goth, so I love all this stuff. It's great. It's great.
Excellent.
And thank you, Dangerlings, for tuning into this Dangerous Wednesdays. We always love having you here. Do follow the link to our Discord to go and add your 2 penneth. How do you feel about the book? How do you feel about appendixes? How do you feel about anything you like? Just jump on in there and have a chat. We love chatting with you, and it's a wonderful community. And, well, I think all that's left to say is it's goodbye from Scott.
Goodbye. Stay horrific. Watch out for the Dark Lords in the dark domains ruled over by the dark powers and the darkness.
Very good. And it's a cosmic horror-drenched darkness of the shadows eating my soul. Goodbye. From me, James Foxy Lockhart, wishing you a very, very happy Wednesday. And remember, stay dangerous.
Cover yourself in drake dung. I'm not going to make you roll to harvest poop from a drake because that is slightly easier to find than retrieving its poison glands intact. Fulton is now covered in poop.
Look, over there, past them trees. Hey, look, I can walk amongst the jungle things now.
Fulton, you got a spider on your shoulder.
As you keep out of walking through the jungle, you see a human running towards you. He appears to be terrified and screaming. Oh, thank God! An earth elemental has attacked my farm! Please, I need your help!
Hail, friend. Can I just ask before we get into it, is the earth elemental quite surprisingly short, making screaming noises?
Yes, it is tiny and it stinks! It burst into my farm and now it's running around the orchards!
Say no more.
Yeah, it's alright.
We are specialised in this exact type of earth elemental.
Thank you, heroes.
We're gonna need a couple of buckets of water,
And maybe some pegs.